You are watching Luntha television and it's time for news. Today you are with me, Hilbert Katanda, out of stories. Pope Francis Cardinal advisors discuss church efforts to prevent abuse. Chakwera set to attend United States-Africa Leaders Summit. Department of Disaster Management Affairs gets extra 7 billion kwacha for food response amid growing hunger. In international news, more than 9,000 people flee violence in South Sudan's Upper Nile. We have these and more. Do stay tuned in. Pope Francis met with his Council of Advisors for a two-day meeting on 5th and 6th December at the current papal residence, the Santa Marta, where Cardinal Sean O'Malley reported on the work of the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors, now within the Roman Curia. The members of the Council of Cardinals discussed the continental phase of the Synod on Synodality, on the work of the most recent United Nations Climate Change Conference before listening to O'Malley's briefing on the protection of minors. The Pope first established the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors at the recommendation of the Council of Cardinals in December 2013 as a papal advisory body to improve the Church's norms and procedures for the protection of children and vulnerable adults. We have the details.
Earlier this year, Pope Francis made changes to the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors in his attempt to reform the Roman Curia with a new apostolic constitution, Predicate Evangelium. The constitution placed the Pontifical Council within the Vatican's Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, a move that led abuse survivor Mary Collins to express concern that the reform could lead to the body losing its independence. O'Malley, who serves as president of the Safeguarding Commission, defended the independence of the commission and promised at a press conference in April that the commission would continue to communicate directly to the Holy Father their recommendations and thoughts. Cardinals from Honduran, German, India and Congolese Cardinal Fridolin Abongo Bumusi also took part in the December 5th to 6th meeting. They were joined by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, Vatican Secretary of State, and Cardinal Giuseppe Bettoro, former president of the Governorate of Vatican City State. The group of cardinal advisors, formerly referred to as the C9 because it once had 9 members, was established by Pope Francis in 2013.
Montfort missionaries of the Catholic Church have launched a formation house which is aimed at promoting vocation and animation of aspirant priests. The house is situated at Andiamo in Balaka district under Balaka parish of the Diocese of Mangochi. In an interview after the launch of Mangochi Diocese Vicar General Father Dave Mambo said the house is of great value to the mission of spreading the word of God. From Balaka, Rashida Matandika reports.
The official opening of the Formation House means that the Montfort missionaries are still continuing with their mission that started many years ago. It means that they are still thirsty in spreading the gospel by admitting more priests, and therefore a conducive environment for formation is required. Speaking after the Holy Eucharist Mass that marked the official launch of the house, Father Paul Mashonga, Superior Delegate of Montfort Africa Anglophone Delegation, said the house has a specific purpose different from other formation houses in their community.
The purpose of launching, officially opening this house is in a way to give you room and space as far as our formation is concerned. For the many years, we have been not having a specific place where we could say it is a place of our young brothers, those who are aspiring to become Montfortians. Some years back, it used to be at Montfort Media, then it moved to Sitima, then it moved again to Mangochi, then it came back to the parish there at Balaka. But finally, we came up with the idea of putting up some structures that would be specific for the prepostulancy. So it means with this kind of establishment, we have a place where we can say this is where prepostulancy is done, and also where vocation promotion and animation will be conducted. So it is so important to us as Montfort missionaries that we have a reference, kind of a reference place to say, where do you do your thing? Then you say it is a such particular place.
In his remarks, the Vicar General for Mangochi Diocese, Father Dave Mambo, who presided over the launch, said the house is of great value to the diocese in as far as vocation and religious life is concerned. While extending the bishop's appreciation, Father Mambo said the story of Mangochi Diocese cannot be narrated without mentioning the Montfort missionaries.
Yes, it is true that we can't talk about the history of the Diocese of Mangochi without mentioning the Montfort missionaries, because they were the first missionaries that came to the diocese, and they have done a lot of things, preaching the word of God, evangelizing, and they looked at the human person wholesomely. It means they established schools, health centers, and what have you. So considering the role that they have played throughout their stay in the diocese, a lot of things have changed because of them. That is why we can't talk about the history of the Diocese of Mangochi without the Montfort missionaries.
The house will also be open for retreats and formation of religious groups and individuals who are seeking spiritual recorrection. Currently, the house has 3 aspirants and is being taken care of by Father Innocent Mwanoka and Father Francis Muhanji. For Luntha TV, this is Rashida Matandika reporting.
President Lazarus Chakwera's latest international travel plans have attracted fresh criticism from observers, accusing him of failing to walk the talk on austerity measures. Chakwera is set to attend the US-Africa Leaders Summit, which is scheduled to take place from Tuesday to Thursday next week in Washington, D.C. In an interview, interim Vice Chairperson for Human Rights Defenders Coalition Michael Gayatsa believes Chakwera is taking Malawians for granted. The Malawi leader has been attending various international and local trips despite making a promise to reduce the same. Executive Director for Center for Democracy and Economic Development Initiatives, CIDET, Sylvester Namiwa, has concurred with Gayatsa. In an area interview, government spokesperson Gospel Gazago justified Chakwera's trips, arguing that his physical presence is required, as he also gets involved in other businesses, like holding bilateral talks. First, Deputy Speaker Madalitso Kazumbo has announced that his office has received evidence on withdrawal of charges against Martha Chizuma, Director General for Anti-Corruption Bureau. Kazumbo told the legislators that Attorney General has indicated that there is no proceeding of the case against Kizuma in the court of law. Meanwhile, Justice Minister Titus Mvaro says a probe into how Martha Kizuma, ACB director, was arrested will be done in a week's time. The Catholic Commission for Justice and Peace has asked President Lazarus Chakwera to suspend officers implicated in alleged corrupt fuel deals at the National Oil Company of Malawi. In a statement released last night titled "The Prevailing Socio-Economic and Political Situation in Malawi," signed by its national coordinator Boniface Chibwana, CCJP says corruption remains one of the insurmountable challenges to President Lazarus Chakwera-led government. According to CCJP National Coordinator Boniface Chibwana, corruption is a serious human rights and development obstacle which is thriving unbeatable due to a number of institutional inadequacies. The Commission has also asked President Chakwera to demonstrate sincerity and genuine commitment to support the Anti-Corruption Bureau, provide adequate security to elderly persons, implementing the National Action Plan on Persons with Albinism. Charity Chilanga reports.
Another issue that we have raised in that statement is the issue of continued plunder of public resources, the issue of corruption, and how, due to bearers, in this case the government, is failing to stamp out corruption. And you have given examples, especially on what had happened at Nokma, and again the arrest of the ACB director vis-a-vis the intentions of the same, to say what is it, what message are we trying to put across in as far as curbing out corruption in this country. So I think there are issues to do with those involved in corruptive practices, irrespective of political parties, irrespective of the social standing that they have in the society. They have to be investigated. They have to really be reported to relevant authorities, and that the justice should be expedited so that we are seen to be doing something in as far as rooting out corruption is concerned.
Members of Parliament have approved revised funding to the Office of the President and Cabinet from 22.3 billion kwacha to 29.2 billion kwacha. Finance Minister Sosten Gwengwe said the vote has been increased with about 7 billion kwacha to provide funding to the Department of Disaster Management Affairs to cater for maize purchase and in readiness of any occurring disaster. This comes after members debated on the mid-year review of the performance of the 2022-2023 financial year. Bernard Mwanza reports.
The minister's constellation is in line with a query that Member of Parliament Fonsanje Lalanje Gladys Ganda made to him to consider the increase as more people are food insecure and that the country should be ready to assist people who might be affected with disasters.
You can't question that one. If the funds will indeed be used for relief items for the people of Malawi, then that's a good move, because you're aware that there's hunger out there. You're aware that people are starving out there. I'm just hoping that funding should be put to good use.
The House also approved the upward adjustment of allocation to the state residences from 14.5 billion kwacha to 19.6 billion kwacha, on which Finance Minister Sosten Gwengwe said the allocation is to properly support settling utilities, among other bills. However, before the approval, opposition members defeated the vote as they needed more clarification. This led into an early suspension of proceedings, and then members were locked in a room with all doors closed, and other parliament staff who were in the room at that time were asked to go out. When they got back into the chamber, that's when the vote for upward adjustment of allocation to state residences was approved unanimously.
You should understand that Parliament is a house where we do have a lot of power play. and you would sometimes see evidence of such on the floor, but in the end, people are able to provide arguments and counter-arguments and come up to one common resolution. And what the MPs vote for is what they think as a House is the right way to move forward.
Meanwhile, Parliament has adjourned to tomorrow for continuation of the Committee of Supply, where members will continue to approve or disapprove votes that will stand part of the revised recurrent and development estimates. For Luntha News at Parliament, I am Bernard Mwanza.
Well, you are still watching news on Luntha Television, coming to you live from Bishop Navy Media Center in Area 2, Lilongwe. Now let's have a recap of our top stories before we proceed. Pope Francis' cardinal advisors discussed church's efforts to prevent abuse. Chakwera set to attend United States Africa Leaders Summit. Department of Disaster Management Affairs gets extra 7 billion kwacha for food response amid growing hunger. And in international news, more than 9,000 people flee violence in South Sudan's Upper Nile. Moving on, the Ministry of Agriculture, through the Department of Land Resource Conservation and partnership with Global Landscapes Forum, has called for collaborative efforts among all stakeholders taking part in environmental conservation initiatives so to get more tangible and rated results. According to the Deputy Director of Department of Land Resources Conservation and the Ministry, Macpherson Tara, as a nation, little is being done to make sure there is full recovery of the degraded mountains, and the only way for Malawi to know how much we are doing and what should be done is for collaborative efforts to lead in all activities and initiatives done for this purpose. And Tara said this at a press briefing, which was held earlier today in Lilongwe, ahead of the commemoration of the International Mountain Day on the 11th this month, to be held in Salima. Jacqueline Saidi reports.
National Mountain Day is a global celebration coordinated by the World Mountain Partnership, whose secretariat is minimal in that it's somehow because everyone is working on their own.
We are not doing very well in the conservation of mountains. They have not received the attention they deserve. I think it's time where and how best can we promote sustainable mountain conservation and development.
After the commemoration of the International Mountain Day, a national advocacy and awareness conference on mountains shall follow on the 13th of December, according to Dr. Steve Makungwa, who is the Managing Director of Center for Applied Systems Analysis and a senior lecturer at Luwana, both of which are partners in the commemoration. The conference shall focus on 4 topics bordering on ways to achieve mountain conservation.
At this conference, we are focusing on 4 main topics. The first one will be the conference. The participants will have to hear from the lived experiences of the people that are living in the landscapes. Those what we call mountain people. So we shall have some people from the mountains, the community from the mountains, who will express and share their experiences and their challenges and opportunities, how they have managed such challenges without met. We think by sharing that, people will be inspired and be able to see how best can we support their, even to alleviate the pride of these people living in those mountainous areas. So that is one area that we'll be focusing on, so that people can actually hear the voice of these people from the mountains. The second part that we are looking at is just, again, to ensure that what we are doing as a country, or maybe what will be launched on this day as a start of the restoration initiative for our mountains, is within the framework of our national policies and legal frameworks. So we shall have also a topic which will look at what policies are available, which are supportive to this restoration that we'll be doing, so that the practitioners, they should be able to know that all what they are doing is within the framework of the government. So that will be another area that will be focused on this day. And apart from that, we'd also recognize that as a country, or maybe as individuals or institutions, we have opportunities that are already there. We have got the assets that we haven't utilized to use them for the benefits of restoring our degraded mountains. For example, we think about the churches, which have got a network of churches across the country, and we know that the religious and faith leaders have got a moral, responsibility or even a moral influence over their followers. If they say something, we always, believe and trust as a Malawian, being a religious nation. And we think if we can also utilize that opportunity, that the church people, the religious and faith leaders, become a vehicle of reaching out the masses in the rural area, many people will be able to be aware about these issues and start changing the mindset so that we can take actions on the ground.
This year's International Mountain Day celebration will be held under the theme Women Move Mountains, in recognition of the roles played by women in environmental protection and social and economic development in mountain areas. For Luntha Television News in Lilongwe, this is Jacqueline Saidi.
Minister of National Unity, Timothy Mtambo, says community radios are key in the realization of Malawi 2063 development blueprint and its enablers. He says communities need to be sensitized effectively on all issues affecting the country for them to effectively participate in the implementation of the development agenda by, among others, helping them in mindset change. Mtambo was speaking earlier today in Lilongwe when the ministry signed a memorandum of understanding with community radio stations. Bernard Mwanza has more in this report.
The ministry has engaged 7 community radio stations from Central Region as a phase 1 of their target to engage 27 community radios to help in the enhancement of a working relationship. Minister of National Unity Timothy Mtambo said the relationship will help to propagate positive mindset mentality amongst Malawians as one of the enablers of Malawi 2063. He said this is part of ensuring that there is tangible and practical mindset change amongst most Malawians in the way they conduct the business of their daily lives.
A very evil mindset we have, to the extent that people becoming old are becoming endangered. We have seen old people being traumatized, being killed, being burnt in this country. And we want to make a strong statement against that, and we want to make sure that the community radios, the radios, traditional leaders, religious leaders, and indeed everyone in this country must participate as we declare war against mob justice in Malawi.
On his part, Jones Banda, who is the station manager for Kasungu Community Radio Station, committed to working with the ministry on issues that need to reach to the communities, such as the much touted mindset change, for them to be at a better position to understand things. Bite Banda. Some of the stations that are part of the first phase of the agreement are Radio Alnafe of Lilongwe Archdiocese, Nkotakota Community Radio, Bembeke FM Radio of Dedza, Modzwato Community Radio in Mchinji, Chisomo Radio Station, and Kasungu Community Radio. The ministry will also engage 9 community radio stations from Southern Region and 11 radio stations from the Northern Region. For Luntha News in Lilongwe, I am Bernard Mwanza.
Calls have been made for nutrition to always be given priority in our nation's development agenda if we are to realize it. Several speakers during the commemoration of the Global Day of Action for Nutrition earlier today in Lilongwe noted that despite making significant strides, the country's nutrition indicators are still high, and that over the years there has been an increase in overweight and obesity among all demographic groups, causing a triple burden of malnutrition. Among other things, stakeholders want government to initiate strategies that will foster the fight against malnutrition in all its forms through committed investments in nutrition and tabling of food and nutrition bill in Parliament. Tanu Nzumara reports.
Commemorated under the theme Enhancing Awareness, Action and Accountability in the Fight Against Malnutrition and Nutrition-Related Non-Communicable Diseases, NCDs, this year's Global Day of Action for Nutrition focused much on the need for collective efforts in mobilizing the general public to embrace positive changes in their eating behaviors so that we can together end all forms of malnutrition. It was noted that there is backward narratives towards our conception of food, as at the moment most Malawians are ignorant of the threat of the nutrition-related NCDs, and so there was much emphasis on the need to create awareness on matters of nutrition that arrest our national development and the need to join hands to create resilience among our communities to respond to the nutritional challenges they are facing. In her remarks, National Coordinator for the Civil Society Organization Nutrition Alliance, CISONA, Bessie Ndovi, noted the need for the country to step up its efforts in the fight against malnutrition in all its forms through, among other things, committed investments in nutrition and tabling of the Food and Nutrition Bill in Parliament.
As we were discussing today here on the panel discussion, it was mentioned that we were rather challenged. Do we know what we eat? Do we know what we eat as I'm standing here? Do I know what I eat? So we want to have the Food and Nutrition Bill enacted because it's going to have the necessary provisions and the law supporting food labeling. Because once the food is labeled, people are going to know and they're going to be informed and they're going to be making informed decisions in terms of the foods that they're going to be eating.
Presiding over the commemoration, Deputy Minister of Health Enoch Pale MP assured of government's commitment towards strengthening the role of the Department of Nutrition in order to enhance oversight, coordination, monitoring and research on matters of nutrition in the country. Pale also assured that he will continue to lobby for more funding to be allocated towards nutrition and for the tabling of the Food and Nutrition Bill in Parliament.
And among the things that have been also discussed during this commemoration, it's quite true. It's an issue related to the Food and Nutrition Bill. It is work in progress. The assurance that I can give to Malawians is that as government, we are committed to making sure that that bill finds its way to Parliament so that it is passed. As Minister of Health, we've managed to consolidate all the inputs that people gave us because we did the coordination. But you know the diversity of issues related to food and nutrition. There were supposed to be other stakeholders also giving in their input. All that has been put in place, and we have placed it upon the Minister of Justice to do the due diligence to that.
Malawi is facing rising incidences of nutrition-related non-communicable diseases, according to the 2017 STEP survey, which showed that 32% of all deaths in Malawi are associated with non-communicable diseases. The survey further revealed that one-third, that is about 32.9% of adults, had raised blood pressure or are currently on medication for raised blood pressure. For Luntha News in Lilongwe, this is Tandiwe Nzumara.
Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Culture, Dr. Michael Usi, has urged youth with specification of participants of the African Union Sports Council Region 5 Games to understand their culture, which also contributes to regional integration. The minister made the remarks yesterday evening at Bingu International Convention Center in Lilongwe during the cultural night at the OSIC regional and local organizing committees organized to promote cultural diversity. According to Minister, African youth should never be apologetic to their culture, hence urging them to embrace their culture, whose foundation is theirs. Harinafe Piri reports.
The Cultural Night event is among some of the activities that the African Union Sports Council AUAC Region 5 holds, realizing that it is a unique element that brings about togetherness between and among member countries, regardless of their differences. Speaking at the event, Minister of Tourism, Wildlife and Culture Dr. Michael Usi called on athletes participating in the ongoing Regional 5 Youth Games of 2022 to understand the foundation of their culture so that they don't go astray because of the influence of Western culture and others.
The tourism minister then commended athletes for understanding each other's cultures, for it has been observed that these participants are living in peace and harmony with each other from the day they arrived in the country.
Calling upon them that as they display their African culture, they should do that with pride. They should know that our culture is sufficient and it serves its purpose. So they should not be apologetic, and also to fashion our culture to be a product for tourism.
In his remarks, Minister of Youth and Sports, Honorable Richard Chimwendo Banda, said as a ministry, they'll continue to support youths in the sports development, but also encouraging them to integrate with others, realizing that African cultures are similar among countries.
We have seen all these athletes forgetting about their competition, but coming in together, enjoying their culture. We have seen quite a number of things. One, similarities of our culture. It has just proven to us that we are one people. The culture, the dancing, the celebrations, the food itself. We have just seen that we may belong to different countries, but we are one. As young people, they are not forgetting their roots. Because sometimes it's very easy to be taken up by the Western culture and other cultures.
In his remarks following the delivery of a heartwarming speech, Chairperson for the AUSC Region 5 Region Organizing Committee, Stanley Mutoya, stressed that the cultural night was not just a showcase of different cultures, but that it seeks to promote sports as a development tool for young people, the nation and region at large.
We want to see young people, our athletes, living out of sport, not being consumers, but being able to be entrepreneurs who can produce to our general economy. That's what we live on Monday, with our hearts very happy. And we're happy that we came and we made a difference to our people in Malawi.
At the event, several faces from the government were present, including the Minister of Information and Digitization, Honorable Gospel Kazako, Deputy Minister of Education, Deputy Minister of Health, Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, and Member of Parliament for Lilongwe City Centre, Honorable Alfred Gia, among others. All the 13 participating countries performed their traditional dances and music, where it was then observed that African countries' culture are interrelated due to similarities in music and dances. Reporting for Luntha News, this is Alina Fiperi.
And in news from elsewhere, more than 9,000 people have fled the most recent violence in South Sudan's Upper Nile state, and some were forced to hide in swamps and bushes during the attack. Local responders' reports indicate that at least 75% of the newly displaced are women and children, with many children separated from their caregivers. At least 20,000 people have fled the violence since it first erupted in August, including 3,000 over the border into neighboring Sudan. But those unable to flee, like the elderly and disabled, had sought refuge in bushes along the banks of the White Nile. Well, that also wraps up our today's news bulletin, but before we go, a reminder of our top stories. Pope Francis' cardinal advisors discuss church efforts to prevent abuse. Chakwera said to attend United States Africa Leaders Summit. Department of Disaster Management Affairs gets extra 7 billion kwacha for food response amid growing hunger. And in international news, more than 9,000 free violence in South Sudan's Upper Nile. My name is Hilbert Katanda. Thanks for watching, and it's goodbye for now.